What if mind without form created form, but cannot itself be distinct from anything? Everything would be an experience to nous, but by creating isolated awareness through sensation, the mind could exist in common context with the individual experience but distinct from the experience of its personality. The desire for them to be real, that would come up over time, wouldn't it? But what about thorough? The distinct awareness of a true or thorough form of companion, friend. What I meant though was that when mind formed in a straight line first, light maybe, just energy or everything considered in momentum in that moment, what if the individual response to each quantum node was different at the line of a sensation for not knowing what to do somehow, and suddenly? Would mind reach back with a hand or forward with the feet for the details of a solution? Animated reflection. Michelangelo's painting with the man leaning on his elbow reaching up with God reaching down. Pulling God down to fill an image of connotative perfection, so to speak, or the possibility of a rising perspective to obscure horizon. The touch of inspiration is the first place of leverage. I think the desire to be God would always be the motion backwards on the grasp. It could be that God let go and he is falling also. Mind, I mean. In search of a companion, but now in a different direction and for different reasons. I think the contextualizing pattern of surface energy we are part of enforces the momentum of our orient regardless of the energetic intention. It's a leaning tensive that will filter under or behind orientation. Light would have to be filtered, wouldn't it? Slow by perspective evolution to introduce location as plants, metabolism to direct momentum, satiation to experience velocity or even inertia. When you think of the dilemma of Goethe, he wasn't satisfied with success like the clown faces because he wasn't trying to be successful by accumulation as a measure, but experience, I think. Faust was listed by performance to be at the top of his field in many areas, not successful in several areas of experience. But he progressed so much, and it's even described in the winding steps up to a small room in the top of a tower with a window and musty smell of overread books, all of a sudden nothing with labels because he could no longer communicate with anyone on the level of a true form friendship. The same mimicking glances and gestures and reactions, downdraft momentums. Socrates seems similar, trying to form some kind of dialogue where people might have the opportunity to participate with him on a level that even he couldn't have imagined or led him to. Plato trying to figure out exactly where that was. Mephistopheles. The black dog with a cloven hoof. Let's go to a witch's party. Still not impressed. What do you want then? I don't know, was the response, I imagine. Right, laugh. I want a bunch of things that react exactly as I expect them to, and do whatever I imagine. K. Clown face and the Red Hat Revolution. S. To the attributable skill for reaction of recognition and a paycheck smile. K. I like what you were saying about nous. Mind not necessarily being the personality, but you're right, we would be devoid of content in a way if we didn't have sensation. S. That's the assumption from here, but what if it's not necessarily true from there? The senses, sensation. We have 5 general filters and a common source for organizing the mentality, but beyond this there is no place for a judgment. It's hard not to imagine fluid form sensation when thinking of it, but I imagine a million little things in movement maybe stimulating themselves through fluid momentum. There would have to be some kind of momentum for a string of thoughts to clear the border of horizon for self-creation from here. You're right, if there was no sensation, what would form the ballast of a thought? K. Clouds maybe, folding in on themselves, moisture accumulation, thunder lightning, are contained energetics. S. I wonder about those pictures of Tesla in Colorado with the huge Tesla coil. The sparks or bolts would just come out randomly. I don't think he was ever really able to discharge the energy to purpose, but he mentioned touching the ether. I like that content stream to it. The mind beyond the brain is hard to imagine. K. What do you mean, beyond thinking? S. Well, yeah, but more like if it were rolling, creasing, like clouds, there would have to be a sensation involved to it, but it might be just orientation with momentum. Sensations of expanse or condensation may be just in the wind's momentum. If there was a sensational overlay like with a cloud for example, there would have to be an external conditioning to the framework, so I think the sensational aspect breaks down past the wind of momentum, but so does thinking for us. K. So you're saying as a hypothesis, that God as mind is formless, he created form. S. Created sensation, but more as a distortion than some kind of complete awareness. A place to start from. It's like that. I think with each new level, elevated senses, it would still just be a new place to start from. Appetites, physics, an extremely poorly suited covering for changing environments keep our feet on the ground. Viewing rules of psychology as restraints instead of opportunities is an obvious dysfunction of conscious aspects of possibility, like with slavery. With Einstein's theory and light times itself, transition is constant at the electrical level. Imagine instantaneous resurfacing that couldn't be caught up with. From their accumulated surfacing would just be evidence of process and sensation, but no form formally or utterly existed. It's just processing, I think. I see, because formlessness would not have a lot to work with in terms of building features, mass, etc. S. I get the sense that those like clown faces you put it, I used to call him Sir Starchy Bunker, yours might be better. K. Thank you. S. They are like great of extrain black holes that are pulling in the surfacing of everything that surrounds it. They want everything reflective of the image at base and center. The more that falls in, the wider it gets, but the flow is to center, so it's getting deeper. I think the perspective as a depth-orient of reflective experience, the connotative gesture of accomplishment, is upside down regarding what we understand as travel and expanse. Horizon amplification, they consider it girth, I think. K. Yes, even while playing tennis. So it's expanding, the influence, but you think the physics are upside down. S. Like Michelangelo's painting, sort of reflecting an image of God while falling backwards. K. That's funny, it's sort of analogous to Eve reaching up to pull down on the tree of knowledge. S. That's the thing about being sensitive to people's feelings. The consequences have always required a sacrifice from someone else. It's like they can't experience it alone, so they try to pull everyone in with them. K. Clownface is notoriously tyrannic when he's by himself for long. That's kind of interesting from that perspective. What do you mean by experiencing it, just being alone? S. Being alone with their own decision about it. I think we make the decision through a decision or series of decisions about the initiating motion reference, and the rest of it is just filling out the blank space of detail. Imagine arriving in heaven with intellect but without any prior notable experience. All the memory of a blank slate, and because of our lack of capacity in momentum or performance, we could concept overlay or interpret the meet and greet as a finish line moment. Receiving no hunger, no pain, no hot, no cold, no height, no depth, no concept, no creation. I once thought how there would be no music if it was only my boarding house farther on earth. Nowhere to go and nothing to gain, but in a sense though no existence. It's not about experiencing an imperfect environment so we can be appreciative for a perfect one, but understanding our own capacity of intense enough to trust ourselves with participation. This experience might be the opportunity to understand or observe the expression of that capacity. It's not earning a location, but being capable of navigating the terms in a place to start from, almost like an Olympian with training arriving at the starting gate on a ski hill. I think they have an expression about hating to lose pilots. Being found with a womb strength zealousness for the reception of something worth perpetual appreciation like the view from the top, that might be one example of it. Now, God says, let us go skiing, laugh. Pop culture profits echoing reception through the sacrifice of our labors in exchange for the sacrifice of the time. Preaching the good news for the reception of a perfect placement unless we were chosen to inherit it, it seems like two slides off the same swing set or orient of momentum. Drafting lines by purpose and intention but with two formal opinions of process. Focusing on his sacrifice on the cross instead of in the desert, I think it's meant to condition us to remain or coalesce in service to a Jesus-like attribute that is beneficial to that process. They view us as the ballast keeping the good work above the sand. I would imagine, the gods, according to Genesis, lack the capacity to give us anything we are unwilling to experience, so they encourage us, inspire us, even take bodily form like Jesus so we can have an example of what our intuitional cues could look like if surfaced by a pro. K. Very impressive. S. Okay, good. You know, there's this weird thing from the pyramid texts, the most interesting creation story I have read yet.